Welcome to Villanova. Some people place it at 1828. There's a record of him being given £1,000 by the Marquis of Lansdowne. If you look here at the fascia and the flashing of those valleys in the roof, that a lot of it has come away. The house itself is, as I said already, situated in the Ivira Peninsula. There's a huge walled garden, and there's also this collection of quite beautiful outbuildings. Walking through now into what was previously the sort of larder, I suppose, and boot room. You can see now that's just sort of an area where we're keeping some of our tools. These were two smaller rooms adjacent to the larger kitchen. Again, you can see that it's in really bad shape in here. Very derelict. Some remnants of previous owners still remain. That's an old stove, gas stove that was left here. These old shelves with some, I don't know what that is, rat poison or something, I think. Yeah, rat poison. Different nasty things left behind, nothing of huge value, but all of it kind of telling a story of the people that were living here before we got here, which is quite interesting, even if it's not necessarily the most beautiful stuff. And then this was, I'm told, previously used as a boot room. So when the original owners and probably successive generations of people living here would come in from the land, because they were almost all farmers or farming people, they would come through the back, I'd imagine, full of mud with their dirty wellies, go in here and change their boots in this room, which again is now not much to behold, before heading out into what is the main kitchen. And this is the first of the sort of larger rooms that you'll see. Again, not a huge amount to report. That's good in here. The ceiling is knackered and not original. The floor is torn and quite interesting in a sort of vernacular way. These nice sort of red tiles that you see up and down the country and used in country kitchens. It's got this very big double sash window here, which we'll obviously be restoring. This is a listed building, so all of the period features that remain will have to be restored, and that's something that we're more than happy to do. In fact, that's one of the main reasons why we bought this property, is because we're very passionate about conservation of Ireland's built heritage, so that's something we'll be taking a lot of pride in. You can see here the door frames and the door itself to the kitchen are not original from the 1858 date I gave, but original to the 1924 date. And I'll get into that a little bit later, because there's, as I said, a lot of history behind this house, and there was a big event in 1922 that led to a lot of this being rebuilt. But you can see here, this is all solid hardwood. I'm not sure what exactly, probably some sort of pitch pine. And you can see the thickness of the walls here, which sort of speaks to the solidity of this building. Generally, it's huge. The walls are, I don't know, 2.5, 3 feet wide of just solid stone. This isn't a brick built building, it's solid stone. So the walls are solid. If the timbers have been experiencing some rot, the walls definitely have shown no signs of moving. And that's something that's sort of given us a lot of faith in the building and sort of heartened us. This is an old stove, obviously long beyond repair. It's totally rotten and also way too small. Moving from the kitchen into the hall here, and you start to get a bit more of a sense of the previous grandeur of this space. This is a really, really nicely proportioned entrance hall, and it leads out to the sort of porch, this bow porch that I showed you from the outside. It's got this gorgeous tiled floor, which we will of course be keeping and restoring, and these beautiful windows, which admittedly right now don't look like much because they're quite rotten. Then beyond that, there's this secondary door, which would have been used, I'd say, primarily to keep the elements at bay, or the cold at bay in those cold winter nights. And turning around, you can see this quite impressive staircase with a return there that has what was the bathroom. So you can see from here, from the landing, that this was at once quite a grand property. As I said, the original owner, the man that built this, James Barry, was a very prominent figure in local politics and society. He was a close friend of Daniel O'Connell and his personal doctor at one point, I believe. There's records in Daniel O'Connell's letters of James Barry, as I said already, buying or offering to buy the materials from Carton House, but there's also a record of James Barry resetting his brother's broken arm after his brother had fallen from a horse somewhere around Carsveen. And that connection to Daniel O'Connell sort of is retained here in some ways. This piece of furniture, which originally I hadn't been hugely impressed by, I have to say. A lot of the local people tell a story that this sideboard was taken from Carton House, or was taken from a house either belonging to or connected with the O'Connell family. I don't know if I fully buy that, but it is obviously a very fine piece of furniture and a very old piece of furniture. This is either pine or oak, stained or ebonized, and it's got a huge amount of work in the details here, in the ornamentation. So each of these figures would have been hand carved. And you can imagine, just given the scale of this piece of work, how much time and effort would have gone into that. But what really strikes me about this is the presence of these sort of almost, to my mind at least, they look kind of pagan motif. These look like the sort of green man that you see in a lot of pagan mythology, the man that sort of represents nature and trees and all the rest of it. And that's repeated throughout this. You have him again down here. I could be wrong about that, so if I am, please feel free to correct me. I'm not an expert on Irish furniture. Regardless, I've come to quite love this piece of furniture now, and despite my reservations when we first bought the house. It's got obviously a lot of history, and even if there isn't a connection with Daniel O'Connell, it's something that we will be preserving here. And it also sort of fits really nicely in this arch. The arch is another interesting quirk. I'm not sure exactly when that was put in, if that's original, or what purpose it would have served, if maybe that was once a door into the kitchen, which is just behind that. I'm not sure exactly what the purpose of that is. But again, you can see the double bay, or one side of the double bay here, with this window seat built in. And that looks out over, it's completely overgrown now, but that looks out over the orchard and beyond. If those trees weren't quite so thick, you would have a beautiful view up the river further towards Foilmore and past Carsveen. So I can imagine myself spending a lot of afternoons here on a sunny Sunday, reading and taking in that gorgeous view, looking at the birds. These fireplaces, similar to this piece of furniture that was left here, originally, I'm almost ashamed to say, did nothing for me. In fact, they were something I was quite gone on removing. To my mind, they looked very 60s or 70s. And it's only when we visited this house of the conservation officer, as I said, this is a listed building, so we're very restrictive with what we can do and can't do. Luckily, we're very much on the same page with the conservation officer in terms of what we want to do with this building, so no concerns there. But the conservation officer saw this in a different light. She thought that these were really special, especially in a house of this period in this region. There isn't anything quite like it, or certainly they're quite rare. And we started to do a little bit of research. You can't see it in this fire, I don't think, but on the back of them there is a patent number and the name of that style. It's the Devon fire, I believe they're called, and they were made by Candy and Company, which is an English furnishing and ceramics manufacturer, around 1922. So I would imagine, given that date, that these were all put in when the house was being rebuilt after that catastrophic event, which I'll save for another video. But since then, I've grown to really appreciate them, especially the fire bricks and the ceramics that come with it. These are really beautiful to me, especially that curved brick around the front. Some of them are quite ornate. They have this sort of ceramic, I don't know what you call that, fender or hearth front. And this oak surround was actually part of the original design. So this was an added extra that you could buy with the fire. We've managed to track down some of the catalogues for the from the Devon Fire Company, and this was an extra that was reserved in this house for the first two rooms. So this room and the room over here both have these oak fires. Again, this is a really beautiful, bright room. You get sun coming through these two windows pretty much right throughout the day. I think the piano's had it. And again, another really beautiful fire in here. This one has that gorgeous sort of mottled effect on the ceramics, which is really quite beautiful. I'm embarrassed that I didn't instantly fall in love with these, I have to say. This one is just stunning. And there you might be able to make out the writing at the back of the fire for the Devon Fire Company. The patent number is there if you're interested. And here is more evidence of the neglect. This is thankfully a steel beam that was put in at some point in the building's history. I'm not sure when exactly, but that's holding up the front of the house. I'd imagine there's one in the other room that we've just come in through. That is a fern, which is never a good sign. You shouldn't have ferns growing in your front room. A hart's tongue fern, I believe, Asplenium scolopendrium. Rot in the floor, which is to be expected, I suppose, given how much weather has been coming through these broken windows. The window frames and shutters here, unfortunately, have had it as well. Meanwhile, these are actually in pretty good shape. In fact, apart from the broken pane of glass in that central frame, this bay is in pretty good shape. It's not that bad. I know it may not look like it's in great shape now, but the windows are all working. There's a sort of hole in this glass, but that is from, I believe, this was a hand-rolled piece of glass. It's an old piece of glass. And I don't think that's from, I think that might have happened in the manufacturing process. That's what I'm trying to say. Again, beautiful, solid wooden door here. And when I say solid, I mean they're really, really solid, thick, solid hardwood doors. And despite this being empty for so long, very, very straight, almost no warping in that door at all. And you can see, if I'm gonna close it, it works perfectly. Sits into the frame perfectly. No warping in any of that wood, which is quite astonishing given how long this building has been empty for. The handle will need a bit of work, but plenty of time for that. And then this is the last room on the ground floor or first floor, whatever way you want to look at it. You can see here we have another fire from the Devon Fire Company. This one admittedly less impressive, which would make sense. Like these were probably more utilitarian rooms at the back of the house. We came in through the kitchen, and this would most likely have been either an everyday sort of sitting room or parlour, or maybe even an office. And as a result, when these weren't being used for entertaining, the fireplaces didn't serve an ornamental purpose. They were just there to heat this room. So this one doesn't have that oak surround and this brownish colour. I'm fine with saying isn't my favourite. But what I do love is this sort of, I don't know what you would call that, almost like arts and crafts motif that they have in these tiles at the top. This room is also without the bay, which those front two rooms had. This one just has a standard double sash window. I think we'll probably have this room as our own office, which, you know, is fine. It's also, like, again, a really generously proportioned room. I'm not sure if you're getting this in the video, but the ceilings are well over 3 meters tall, I would say. Maybe closer to 4. Maybe I could be wrong about that. Maybe 3 meters tall. The floor's in really good condition in here, actually, surprisingly. No rot or evidence of it immediately. We'll see more evidence of the timber beams that are under it from the basement. They're not so lucky. But yeah, this room and this ground floor altogether are in pretty good shape. So if the ground floor was in very good shape, or surprisingly good shape, things take a dramatic turn for the worse as we go upstairs. This part of the house, we suspect, was a later addition. That just comes away in your hand. This is one of the bedrooms towards the sea, Valencia Island. This sort of marine blue, but it's just spectacularly beautiful.